Assalamu alaikum. Today in Business Studies Grade 10 lesson, we are focusing on multinational companies. In this lesson, we will be talking about reasons for the importance and growth of multinational companies. I am Noha Ismail. I am business teacher from Kalafan School. So let us look at the syllabus objectives. So in the Cambridge syllabus, from this topic, we need to understand the benefits to a business of becoming a multinational company, as well as we will be studying about their impact on stakeholders. We will be talking about potential benefits and drawbacks to the host country due to multinational companies. So in this lesson, we will be defining multinational companies, then we will be talking about the benefits as well as drawbacks to MNCs, then we will be talking about what are the benefits of MNCs to the host country. So first let us define what is multinational companies. So multinational companies are those businesses with factories, production or service operations in more than one country. So that means if we are the managers of the business and if we are having a factory located in more than one country, we can be considered as a multinational business. This is also known as transnational businesses. So usually some students are having misconception regarding this multinational company. So some students regard when a company is selling its products to other countries, but actually these companies will not be considered as a multinational company unless they are producing their goods and services in more than one country. So if they are only importing and exporting their materials or finished goods, it will not be considered as a multinational company. So here are some examples. For example, if we consider oil companies, famous brands like Shell, BP and Exxon can be considered. In car manufacturers, Nissan, General Motors and Honda. So when we talk about only in General Motors, we can see that if we search about General Motors, we can see that 396 facilities or factories are located in more than 6 continents of the world. So they have a worldwide operations. So why businesses are becoming multinationals? So these are the benefits of multinational companies. First one is easier access to raw materials. I think you have already studied about factors affecting location of business organizations. So when we are locating manufacturing business, one of the factor is near to the raw materials. So that means if we can locate our factory near the raw materials, or that means source of raw materials, in that case it will be easier for us to access to those raw materials. This will be benefited because we do not have to transport these raw materials to a longer distance, so that we can reduce production cost. So that can be the analysis of this point. Then we have lower cost of labor. So in some part of the countries we can find a higher unemployment. So due to that, the labor cost or the wages countries are paid or these employees are paid are very lower. For example, General Motors, which is originally an American company, which can be located in India, for example, there they can find a cheap labor. That means they can ask these employees to work for a fewer wage, a lower wage. So in that case, they can reduce their labor cost. Then we have economies of scale. So economies of scale means because of larger production, we are reducing the total average cost. So when we are increasing the production scale, we will be able to gain several economies of scale. For example, when we are buying raw materials in bulk quantities, we will be getting discounts so that we can reduce the average cost. Similar way, we can get several other economies of scale like marketing economies of scale, and as well as we will be able to distribute the products in a better way. Then we have access to bigger markets. For example, if we consider General Motors, which was originally in America. So in that case, if we are to access some Asian countries because of some import barriers, we may not be able to sell our products to Asian countries. So if this General Motors locate a factory in India, for example, In that case, from that company they can produce and sell to Asian countries, so that they are able to access a bigger markets in a cheaper way. Then we have a lower production cost. So, because of several other factors like easier to access raw materials, lower labor cost, plus if land cost, for example, the rent of the land, if it is lower, means that means they will be able to reduce their production cost. Then spread in risk. So, here means instead of locating their business in one of the country, instead of locating their production in one of the country, they will now they are able to produce in different parts of the country. That means if they are having lower demand, for example, in European countries, they may be able to cover up that from the increase in demand from Asian countries. So, they will be able to spread their risk across different countries. Then we have premium pricing. Get in the name of MNC, so multinational companies, that will be increasing their brand image. So, so it can help them to charge higher prices for their products. So that because of that they may be able to get a good margin from their products. So, we have some threats to MNCs. Here threats means, so some of the drawbacks the countries, the MNCs might have due to the environment and political reasons of the country, of the host country. So, one of the threat or the drawback is shortage of labor. As one of the advantage, we have talked about cheap labor. So, when we are talking about threats of shortage of labor means when we are talking about some technical experts or some expertise that we require, in that case the host country may not be able to provide those technical expertise. So, we may have to import labor, or we may have to bring foreign laborers to join our company. So, that may be expensive because we may have to give accommodation and several other benefits to this labor instead of local labor. Then we have language barrier. Language barrier, so this can be a disadvantage because we may be having difficulty in communicating with the labor force. So, so how we are communicating with the local labor force, it may be so there may be a language barrier. So, the management might have, so might need to get some training in order to avoid this language barrier. Then we have cultural differences. So, cultural differences means in some cultures the companies might not be having a good understanding. For example, if we take only McDonald's, where they have several branches in several parts of the country. For example, if McDonald's is going to locate one of their outlet in, for example, Muslim countries, in that case they have to bring some changes to their products. For example, they don't so they can't have several products regarding pork products, for example. So, in that case they have to bring some, several changes to their culture. So, these cultural differences can come regarding their products, their marketing, as well as how they are dealing with the labor force. Then strict regulations. So, there can be several regulations set by the government when they are entering into a country. For example, when Honda was trying to enter India about 20 years back, Indian company, Indian government was not allowing them as a foreign direct investment. That means Honda can't enter as their own company. So, they have to join one of the local companies. So, they joined Hero. So, they have a joint venture of Hero or Honda. So, there can be several strict regulations when they are entering into a country, as well as there can be several strict regulations regarding their trade and other matters. For example, regarding their labor force, regarding their marketing, regarding their operations as well. Then we have hostile business environment. For example, a business which is already located in America, which may be having a very different environment if they are entering into Asian countries. So, they are, so because of cultural, language and some other issues, this environment may be very hostile. So, that means the business management has to do some research that may be expensive, or they may have to learn this business environment before they succeed in the business. So, So, it can be a threat to their success, this hostile environment. So, next point is expensive labor cost. So, expensive labor cost here means there in some part of the labor force they may have to give a higher wage. For example, we have already seen that there can be one of the reason why companies coming into the a country is cheap labor force. Cheap labor force can be at the lower level, but when we consider higher or technical expertise level, we may have to bring foreign workers. So, that can be an expensive labor cost area. Then we have local opposition from pressure groups. So, because this MNC can be a threat to the local companies, so there can be several threats from pressure groups and other local companies. So, these pressure groups might not be happy with how they are operating. For example, how they are disposing their waste materials or how they are dealing with their labor force. So, these pressure groups can pose a good threat to the MNCs. Then we have little brand awareness. Though this company is very famous in some part of the country, it may not be as famous as the other country in this country. For example, if we consider in Maldives, for example, if we consider MIFCO canfish. So, when a country is coming into Maldives and establishing canfish company or manufacturing business, so it may have to deal with the brand awareness or brand loyalty of MIFCO products. So, that can be a big disadvantage or challenge for MNCs. So, then the other point is currency fluctuations. In some countries there can be several fluctuations. So, that means in one day it may be very high and the other day may be very low. So, that means appreciation and depreciation of currency. So, that can be that can have several disadvantages when they are importing raw materials or when they are exporting their products from that country. So, it can have a huge impact on their imports and exports. Then political instability. So, political and other threats, for example, if a country is having a very unstable political situations, or even there can be several threats. For example, in some of the Middle Eastern countries, there are several war zones. So, in that case, an MNC establishing a factory in one of their country, it can be a very challenging thing for them. So, because of threats to their company as well as because of political instability. So, there can be several changes in their policies which may be a disadvantage to the host country. Then we have impact on its stakeholders. So, stakeholders here means any organization, any group of people which have an interest in business organization. So, if the company is becoming multinational, one of the stakeholder groups that will be affecting is shareholders. So, because they are having an expansion, in this case because of higher profit they may earn, the company might be increasing their dividend. So, that can be an advantage to shareholders. So, they will be getting a higher return for their investment. Then employees. So, because the company is expanding, these employees might be having an advantage of getting a promotion to overseas locations. So, that can give a benefit to them. Then we have suppliers. So, suppliers may have an increase or decrease of sales. So, that means suppliers of raw materials. So, there may be increase in their sales or it may have a decrease depending on the location of their business. Then we have government. Obviously, one of the main interest of government in MNCs is the tax return that they are getting from these MNC companies or MNCs. Government may gain a higher tax revenue from multinational corporations. Then we, if a multinational company is coming and establishing in Maldives, what are the benefits we will get? So, in this case we have several benefits. One of the benefit is increase the choice and quality of goods and services. So, so far we are enjoying the local products. For example, in that case, if there is a multinational company, that means that will be bringing variety of choice and quality of goods and services. So, the customers will be benefited because there will be a good competition where they can get quality and variety of these goods and services for a reasonable price. Then we have increased employment opportunities. As we have seen that one of the main reason why our companies are entering host countries for cheap labor. So, when this host countries is building a factory in Maldives, that will be a huge employment opportunities for the citizens of Maldives. So, this can help help to increase the standard of living as well as increase in the income of the country. Then we have generates income in the form of tax. So, so this is a huge advantage for the government. So, this is one of the reason why the government is encouraging MNCs to come and establish in our country. So, from the profit the MNC is getting, the government will be taking corporation tax. So, that will be the main income the government is using in order to provide the services for the citizens of the Maldives or citizens of the countries. Then we have improved infrastructure. In some countries, these MNCs are not only establishing a company, but in order to transport their goods and services or in order to transport their materials, they may be they build roads as well as communication and these communication networks. So, this will be improving their infrastructure. So, because of these communication networks as well as because of the road facilities, that we so that will be benefiting or everyone in the country. Then knowledge sharing, the expertise or the knowledge we receive from the multinational companies. So, that means the local employees or the labor force is now getting the knowledge of these multinational companies. One example I can share is that, as I have mentioned about Hero Honda, which was established in India. So, when when their joint venture was over, this Hero was able to stand on their own and compete with Hero and compete with their Honda. So, that means previously Hero was only a bicycle company. Now, they are able to produce automobiles as well. So, from Honda they have learned several knowledge, expertise knowledge, and how they can communicate, how they can market, and several other knowledge was shared from the Honda company. Then we have improves the balance of payment. So, balance of payment here means the government will be calculating their trade imports and exports, and so balance of and we will be able to improve their balance and our balance of payment, because so this MNC companies will be producing in the country and they will be trading. They may be even exporting their products from our country to nearby countries. That will be increasing our exports, as well as we will be able to improve the balance of payment. Then there can be several drawbacks, because multinational companies are very large. We may not be able to control these multinational companies, and there can be several disadvantages as well. So, undue influence on the government, because MNCs are large in size, they may be influencing several policies of the government. So, that can be a disadvantage to the local companies, as well as there can be several disadvantages to the local labor force. Then increased competition. So, MNC will be a big competitor for the local products. So, in this case the local companies might not be having that much expertise, knowledge or capability in order to compete with these multinational companies. So, some local companies might be ending their business, because there is no demand, or they are not able to compete with these multinational companies due to lower price they are charging and other factors. Then environmental damage. So, there are several issues reported due to environmental damage from multinational companies. So, they may not be careful enough when disposing waste materials. They may not be careful enough when dealing with extraction of raw materials from the country. So, there can be several environmental damage due to these MNCs. Another environmental damage can be the pollution created. For example, noise as well as air pollution created can be a huge environmental damage. So, we have already studied about the externalities. So, there can be several social costs of MNCs to the host country. Then exploitation of labor. Because unemployment rate is very high, there are huge number of employees who are ready to work for a lower wage. The MNCs might be hiring these workers and they may be giving a very low wage, because there is abundant labor force available. Even at a lower wage, they are able to recruit a huge number of lower level employees. So, they may be exploiting labor. Then repatriation of their profits. The MNC is giving only the percentage of their profit as tax to the host country, but they will be taking their main profit to their so they will be taking their main profit or the large percentage of their profit to the their own country. So, host country may not be able to get a good advantage or may not be having a good financial benefit from MNC. The host country is getting only tax from their profits. Then exploitation of natural resources. For example, we have seen for example, Shell, an oil company. There is an oil resource, for example, in Maldives. If Shell is coming and establishing in Maldives, means they will be using up all this natural resource, and if this natural resource is finished, that means they will be packing and they will be going home. So, in that case, these natural resources may be depleted. So, we may not be able to protect our natural resources. So, they may be overusing our natural resources in order to produce in large volumes or in order to increase their production. So, here is the summary of a whole thing we have studied. We have seen several advantages to the farm. So, some of the advantages that it is a new market, then we can obtain raw materials, then we will be able to avoid trade barriers because we are establishing a production facility in the country. Then lower labor cost, spread risk. Then we have seen several advantages to the stakeholders. For example, employees, government as well as shareholders might be benefited. Then there are several advantages to the host country and several disadvantages to the host country. So, it is a huge opportunity for host country in order to increase their production, so in order to increase their investment, and there can be more exports because we are increasing production with the help of multinational companies, and we are creating jobs. So, jobs are created, and due to competition, there can be a healthy competition, and our local companies also might be increasing their quality. Then several disadvantages can be exploitation of labor force as well as using of scarce resources. Then existing firms may be in danger. Our local small companies or small farms may be in danger because they are not able to compete with the large MNCs. Then profits will be flowing out of the country. Then often only unskilled jobs will be created. So, this topic is from unit 6. So, unit 6 is about, so there will be about 20 marks from each paper. So, 20 marks from that means from paper 1 and paper 2, there will be 20 marks covered in this unit 6. So, usually in multinational companies you will be asked, so you may be asked to define multinational companies. So, you should be able to focus on the main terms that you should include in defining multinational companies. Then some questions are asked, for example, for 6 marks as well as for 12 marks. there are questions asked, you are asked to identify and explain several advantages and disadvantages of MNC or becoming a multinational company. So, that can be a 6 marks or 12 marks question, and there are several questions asked regarding the benefits and drawbacks, or advantages and disadvantages of MNCs to a host country. So, you should be able to analyze and evaluate each of these points. So, that is all we have to cover in this topic, multinational companies. Everyone please stay safe, wash your hands and revise your lessons, and thank you. See you soon.